Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Kishore Kishore, Jaya Kishore Kishore, Jaya Kishore Kishore, Jaya Kishore Kishore. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
इसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी जय एवं विष्णुपाद परमांश विराजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शुद्ध श्री श्रीमद स्वामी ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती भक्ति गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय सत गोस्वामी वृंदावन की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद द्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास हरि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपु गोपीनाथ श्याम राधा गिरि गोवर्धन जय वृंदावन धाम जय अद्वैत मायापुर धाम जय श्रीनाथ पुरी की जय तुमसे धाम की जय most beautiful worship Shri Shri Kishore Kishore की जय श्री जगन्नाथ श्री बलदेव श्रीमती सुभद्रा महारानी की जय परमा करुणा श्री श्री गणिताय की जय अंगमयी उन्मयी की जय भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय
Wow. Add little bitty. Add little bitty. Okay. Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Poro Premamritambo Nadi Kirtana Gana Nartana Poro Premamritambo Nadi Dira Dira Jana Priyo Priyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujito Dira Dira Jana Priyo Priyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujito Shri Chaitanya Kripa Baro Bhuvi Bhuvo Bharavantarako Shri Chaitanya Kripa Baro Bhuvi Bhuvo Bharavantarako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Bolo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Balaba Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Shri Shri Kishore Kishori ki jai. Narayanam Namaskrityam Nadam Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiyarayad. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, the bookmark is at 6:15:10. Okay, and we're going to 6:15:17, but it's on 18 on the board, right? Okay, so I'll read the 17 here. No, yeah, and then together we can chant the 18, 19. Okay, okay. Shri Angira Uvacha Aham Te Putra Kamasya Putrada Shmi Angira Nripa Esha Brahma Sutta Sakshan Narado Bhagavan Rishi. Okay, anybody understand what that means? What does aham mean? Or I am? Yeah, I. Yeah. Aham eva sam eva agre. Okay. Te, you, putra, kamasya, something with desire, fulfilling desires. Okay, we can learn Sanskrit. Yes. My dear king, when you desire to have a son, I approached you. Indeed, I am the same Angira Rishi who gave you this son. As for this Rishi, he is the great sage Narada, the direct son of Lord Brahma. Jai. Okay, then here's today's verse. Peace, peace. Itam tvam putra shokena magnam tamasi dushtare atad arham anusmritya Mahapurusha Gocharam. Boliye. Chant. Itam tam putra shokena Magnam tamasi dustare Athararham anusmritya Mahapurusha Gocharam. Itam tvam putram shokena Magnam tamasi dushtare Smritya Mahapurusha Gocharam. Itam tvam putra shokena Tam tamasi bhushtare Ata aham anusmritya Mahapurusha Gocharam. Itam tam putra shokena Magnam tamasi dustare Atharaham anusmritya. Ladies chant. Itam tvam putra shokena Magnam tamasi dushtara Daturushtaram Dakrita Mahapurusha Gocharam. Itam tvam Moshe Gokrena Magnam tamasi dushtare Atadaham Apurusha Gosharam Itam. In this way, Tvam, you, Putra Shokena, because of grief at the death of your son, Magnam, merged, Tamasi, in darkness, Dushtare, insurmountable, Atat Arham, unsuitable for a person like you, Anusmritya, remembering Mahaparusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gocharam, who are advanced in understanding. Okay, and then also the next verse is combined, so I'll chant the Sanskrit for that. Anugrahaya bhavatu. No, I'll do it. Yeah. Praptav avam iha prabho. Brahmanyo bhagavad bhakto navasaditum arhasi. My dear king, you are an advanced devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be absorbed in lamentation for the loss of something material is unsuitable for a person like you. Therefore, we have both come to relieve you from this false lamentation, which is due to your being merged in the darkness of ignorance. Yeah. For those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, to be affected by material loss and gain is not at all desirable. Please repeat. My dear king, you are an advanced devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be absorbed in lamentation for loss of something material is unsuitable. For a person like you. Therefore, we have both come to relieve you from this false lamentation, which is due to your being merged in the darkness of ignorance. For those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, to be affected by material loss and gain is not at all desirable. All right. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Several words in this verse are very important. The word Mahapurusha refers to advanced devotees and also to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maha means the Supreme, and Purusha means person. One who always engages in the service of the Lord is called Mahaparushika. Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit are sometimes addressed as Mahaparushika. A devotee should always aspire to engage in the service of advanced devotees. As Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas Janame Hoye Abilas. Yeah. A devotee should always aspire to live in the association of advanced devotees and engage in the service of the Lord through the parampara system. One should serve the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the instructions of the great Goswamis of Vrindavan. This is called Tandara Charana Sevi. While serving the feet of the Goswamis, we should live in the association of devotees, Bhakta Sanivas. This is the business of a devotee. A devotee should not aspire for material profit or lament for material loss. When Angira Rishi and Narada saw Maharaj Chitraketu, an advanced devotee, had fallen in the darkness of ignorance and was lamenting for the material body of his son, by their causeless mercy, they came to advise him so that he could be saved from this ignorance. Another significant word after Mahapurusha is Brahmanya. The Supreme Personality of God is sometimes addressed by the prayer, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, which offers obeisances unto the Lord because he is served by the devotees. Therefore, this verse states, Brahmanya Bhagavad Bhakto na vasaritum arhasi. This is a symptom of an advanced devotee, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. For a devotee, an advanced self-realized soul, there is no cause for material jubilation or lamentation. He is always transcendental to conditional life. Srila Prabhupada ki. So, it's pretty clear verse in some ways. Srimad Bhagvatam is how many verses? Yeah, but no one's ever been able to really come up with that number. It's about that, you know. You try different systems, and you won't come up with that number exactly, you know. One modern theory is that the Puranas and everything else are produced by evolution, by mental speculation. The great rishis, they keep adding things like this and that. But the actual people actually investigate, it seems that actually the Puranas are getting smaller. So there are many, many, many things wrong with the Indologists' view of the history of the Puranas, the ages. And they're not all, you know, demoniac people, these Indologists. You know, some are nice people and different levels of understanding. So Srimad Bhagavatam is complete in 18,000 verses. In the Vedas, or someplace, the Puranas, it's described that the different Puranas are very, very beautiful, like the stars in the sky. When you go out in a nice, beautiful evening, you see the stars in the sky. They're all twinkling, and they all feel very proud and look very beautiful. So the stars in the sky are very beautiful and very impressive until the moon of Srimad Bhagavatam comes up, right? And then they say, oh, he's bigger than we are. Yeah. So big professors, one Professor Rao, he's an emeritus professor of Sanskrit from the University of Madras, and he was teaching, you know, for University of Oxford, and so Radhika was there, and he told all the students, all the graduate students, he said, you know, I've read all the major Vedic literatures, I've read most of the minor Vedic literatures. I'm not, you know, we're being, we're puffed up. You know, if you study Sanskrit like this for, you know, for 40, 50 years, you should have done this. You know, so he says when the Srimad Bhagavatam is described like this, like the moon, you know, amongst the stars, he said it's not an exaggeration. For the beauty of the poetry, for the sophistication of the grammar, for the depth of the philosophy, Srimad Bhagavatam is in a class by itself, right? You know, why don't we know this? Because the British, Prabhupada said, the British are the most cunning people, right? You know, he said never trust an Englishman. The most cunning people in terms of espionage. You know, it came out afterwards, after the British rule in India. There were letters between the Home Office in England and the people trying to manage India, that they actually were encouraging Gandhi and his movement, right? They were using reverse psychology. Oh, don't do this, don't do this. I am going to do it, I'm going to do it. No, don't you do that. I will do it, I will do it. They were very clever, you know, because they figured if they encouraged Gandhi, he would take people away from Bosch's fighting army. Bosch had a real army shooting at people. Gandhi was blocking intersections by strikes and stuff like that. So they figured Gandhi was a very good way to draw people away from this, you know, the movement. Then Prabhupada goes on to say, and even the people that joined him, after they had a little taste of prison life for their strike activities, would just give it up altogether. So they had a very, very conscious, concerted program to discredit all the Vedic culture, everything else like that. You know? And it's so good that even to this day, even intelligent, educated Indians, you know, think that people like Max Mueller and others are the greatest gift to Indology. Max Mueller translated the Vedas in such a way that they sound like idiot philosophy, you know, some primitive savages and so on. You know? But it's not that way, you know. And the Bhagavad Purana, amongst all these things, again, it stands like, you know, like the moon amongst the stars, like that. Most of Puranas do not have commentaries, right? But the Bhagavad Purana has a commentary by everybody, because everybody wants to show that the Srimad Bhagavatam supports their philosophy. Yes, Srimad Bhagavatam shows that we are all God. It is the greatest Mayavadi. Shankaracharya didn't touch it because he knew it would be stupid. It's so brilliant that you can't cover it. And he knew if he tried to, it would be obvious like that. So we can go on for a long time about the glories and potency of the Bhagavatam. Most of the Puranas, they start off about talking about one thing, change to something else, go to a third, go back to the first, and finish off with a fourth. you know, yeah. And halfway through, they're talking about gem therapy. Well, if you got this, you probably should use rubies, and maybe a couple of emeralds might help. Yeah. But Srimad Bhagavatam starts off with one theme, and it sticks with that theme all the way through in a very systematic, organized fashion. Yeah. Okay. What is the Paribhasa Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam? Huh? Indrari Vyakalam Mukam Mridyanti Yoge Yoge. Yeah. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. How's it go? I forgot. Krishna's tu Bhagavan. So that's the last part, Ete Chaamsa Sakalpum Sam Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Right? And Jiva Goswami is the person who identifies this as the Paribhasa Sutra. So right in the very beginning, when he's starting off his work of answering the questions by the sages, what is the best sacrifice? What is the best book? What is the best dharma? Why do the incarnations come? What's the significance of the incarnations? What's the significance of the Krishna incarnation? Okay. He lists all these different incarnations, Dhanvantari, Varaha, Matsya, Mahavishnu. And he says, Ete Chaamsa Sakalpum Sam. Of all these incarnations, and the incarnations of all these incarnations, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original form, the most intimate original form of all of them like that. Because all these different Vedas are talking about so many people, so many things, so many ideas, so many goals. But in the Bhagavad Purana, it's coming to the point of saying that among all these different personalities of the Godhead, right, the supreme personality of Godhead is, Krishna. Krishna, like that, so on. So after that, it goes through systematically, presenting so many avatars. What do you got? We got Manvantars, Guna avatars, Lila avatars, Purusha avatars, Shakti Avesha avatars, like that, so on. But is Krishna an avatar? How do you say, what is he in Sanskrit? He's avatara, avatari, like that. But to appreciate him, you got to go higher, one step at a time. Some little child sees the moon. He wants the moon. He's crying, howling, everything else. So the mother takes him over and says, "You see the trees there with the flowers on them. You like them so much. You play with them." Yes. Now look through the branches. What do you see? Oh, the moon is far away. Yeah, far away. So by understanding, Vibhuti Mat Sattva, pantheism, amongst animals, Krishna is the lion. Yeah. Anybody ever see a lion? Anybody ever see a lion close up? Yeah. Yeah. You can hear if I don't know how far away it would be, but at least a mile. If you hear a lion roar 1 mile away, you're glad you know which direction he is, which direction you are, and you start going the opposite direction. So much power. Yeah. I saw a picture one time of a lion coming out of the jungle. It was black and white, and he was standing up like this, and he looked just like a human being whose face had been like distorted. These big muscles, his chest had been pressed. He just looked like a human being, but just completely insane, like that, and so much powerful. Lions fight with elephants. Big male elephant. How do they kill them? They break their backbone with their teeth. That's how powerful a lion's jaws and teeth are. Get in the back of elephant. Yeah, okay. So you want to mano a mano, fellow. Here we go. Yeah, this is the proper meditation. So some yogi tells you, "Hey, I am God, you are God, we are all God." And you say, "Let's go to the zoo." Whoa, yeah, okay. Among bodies of water, I am the ocean. I sat down by the ocean one time in our Sankirtan van looking at it, and I was meditating, and God, you get so many realizations about how great the ocean is. So this is Vibhutimat Sattva, specifics, energetic incarnations. And this is pantheism. And this takes you then to the Paramatma, who's an incarnation, he's a Purusha avatar. And then by that you go to the Mahavishnu, which is the first level of Bhagavan worship, And so gradually we begin to see the potency, the power of these incarnations, the beauty, the qualities like that. Does this does Vaikuntanath, Vishnu in Vaikuntha, does he reciprocate Vatsalya Ras? Can you become the father of Vishnu in Vaikuntha? Mother? No. Mahavishnu, what do you call it? Shantaras. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. You just sit there forever. It's just like, they're greeting the deities forever. It never ends. Mother Jamuna just keeps on going, But there's no service attitude. But it's devotion, it's respect. Okay. Next higher by worship in Chaitanya Charitamrita. By worshiping Purusha avatars, one is promoted to the worship of Vishnu in Vaikuntha. By worshiping him, one can be promoted to the worship of Ayojapati, Ram. Because in Ram, there's some friendship. There's respect, but there's also a little friendship. Like, somebody who's had a driver, for 30 years, they have a little friendship too, Yeah, so he embraces Hanuman. Like that. And then you go next to, by doing that, you can be promoted to Dwarka, and then to Mathura, then to Vrindavan, like that, so on. So higher and higher realization. And the Bhagavatam goes to Gopi Baba, and it indirectly hints about Radharani's feelings like that, and so on, yeah. And so different levels of maturity. So the Bhagavatam takes us through this gradually. The first two cantos are Krishna's lotus feet. Lotus feet. She just showed them to me. Yeah, lotus feet, like that. We're not sure which is the left, which is the right. Yeah, and then 3 and 4 are his legs, 5 his navel, 6 his chest, 7 and 8 his arms, 9 his throat, 10 his face. The 5 Rasa Lila chapters are his smile. 11 and then 12, like that, so on. Gradually going up, very systematic. The first canto is a preface. Why is this book being written? Who's speaking? Who's asking the questions? Under what circumstances? It's all answered in the first canto. So in the second canto, we're ready to hear, Maharaj Pariksit and Sukadeva Goswami. In the second canto, he answers all his questions in the first 3 chapters. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Pantheism, mysticism, monotheism. What's it called? The first step in God realization, the Lord in the heart, and a change of heart. Then Maharaj Pariksit says, well, hey, that's great, but I'm not going anywhere. More. Okay, he tells him how Brahma speaks the Bhagavatam to Narada. Then after that, Maharaj Pariksit says, well, tell me, what did Narada do? How did he preach after he heard this from Brahma? And he asks very specific questions about, what Narada explained in this explained. And so then it goes into finishes off the third canto. The sages want to hear about what Vidura heard from Maitreya. Because Vidura heard from Maitreya when Krishna was speaking to Uddhava. Actually, Maitreya heard. And that time Krishna gave higher knowledge than the 4 verses. The 4 verses just talk about Mahavishnu, the Purusha avatar. But to Uddhava, he gave knowledge of Dwarka Lila. That my pastimes in Dwarka are not an inferior incarnation of Mahavishnu. Many people will tell you that Krishna is the incarnation of the Hindu love god. Like that. For people who are too attached to love, then Mahavishnu incarnates, as the love god, so they can make progress. Okay, no, he was telling him, no, my pastimes in Dwarka are higher than what I told Brahma, and I'll tell you now. So the sages wanted to hear about that. So, okay, they're tired of hearing about creation, the 5 elements, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So the third canto then describes how Vidura met Maitreya, but he was a little embarrassed to ask right away about Dwarka, so he asked about creation again. Oh, God. You can't get away from it. It's important because this is where we are. And we're right here in this world. If we understand this, we're out of it. Then our classes can go on in a better atmosphere. So Maitreya explains it, and during this whole course, the creation of Swayambhuva Manu comes up, because Brahma is trying to create everybody from mental children. He had mental children. Was it Angira, I think, Atri, Narada, Shiva, the Kumaras. He's creating all these mental children, but it's going too slow, and he has to get bodies for everybody. Right? Everybody has their own desires. He needs horses. He needs cows. He needs mosquitoes. Too slow. Yeah. So out of this anxiety come Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa. And he has a big mustache and she has a good figure. Okay, we're in business. Like that. But they're too much in the mode of goodness. They're just doing austerities. They don't even notice each other's physical beauty. So he says, please, can you get down into a little more lower consciousness and become biological father and mother? They say, all right, if you want us to do it, we'll do it. Okay, So we'll start eating Sunday feast, and again, we'll start having halava and this kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, But where are we going to do this? We can't do it up here in the celestial level. We have to do it on the earth. Okay, so the whole story of Varaha comes up. Okay, they had 5 children. Okay, who were their children? If you've taken our course, our Bhakti Bhava class, you'll know. We have an acronym. Remember? DAP up. Pra. Priyavrata. DAP up. Or if you speak Spanish, DAP up. Okay, we got it here. Devahuti, Akuti, Prasuti. The 3 Uti sisters. Okay? Devahuti, Akuti, Prasuti. Uttanapada, Priyavrata. And from the 3rd canto all the way through the 7th canto, this is how the Bhagavatam is organized. He says, Maharajparika says, tell me about these children and all the avatars that occurred. So there you got the whole Bhagavatam in one acronym. Devahuti married, and their son was 4 or 5 chapters, 3rd canto. Okay. Akuti married Ruchi. They had Vishnu and his wife as their children, and they became the Manus very quick. Prasuti married Daksha. Okay. And their daughter was, and she didn't have any children because she committed suicide before she was even big enough a girl to get married. That says, hey, wait a second. Maharaj Parika says, wow, what happened? Okay, so the whole story of Daksha Yagna, like that. Okay, Devahuti Akuti Prasuti, Uttanapada, and he was the father of Dhruva, and it goes on down through Dhruva's descendants. Okay, now the acronym, you don't know this, the acronym for the 4th canto is DDPP. Very easy to remember. DDPP. Daksha, Dhruva, Prithu, Pracheta. That's the whole 4th canto. And Prithu's in the line of Dhruva, Pracheta's in the line of Dhruva, like that, and so on. Okay. And that finishes off the whole 4th canto. 5th canto, we have one left, dap up. Priyavrata, right? Now the acronym for the 5th canto, 4th canto? 5th canto. Priyavrata is Panarbabu. A few times you get it. Priyavrata, Agnidra, Nabi, Rishabdev, Bharata, and Bhumandala. That's the whole 5th canto right there. Yeah. Priyavrata was a great guy, did a lot of things. His son was Agnidra, his son was Nabi, he was the father of Rishabdev. Rishabdev preached to his sons. The greatest son was Bharata. He took over, he fell down, burned as a deer, got it all straightened out, preached to Bajada Bharat, preached to Maharaj Rahugana. They both headed off to somewhere else. And then Maharaj Parika says, hey, I explained this forest of material enjoyment one more time. I couldn't quite get it. And also explain in detail now about the universe. So we get all this Sadaputa, cosmology. Really, without Sadaputa's movie, it's very difficult to understand it, the cosmology of the universe. But it's on the YouTube, and you can watch it or download it there. Okay. And he wanted to hear about that because he wanted to see the glories of God. He wanted to hear about the universe, Bhumandala, Mount Meru, all these things, because he wanted to hear about the glories of God. Okay? Sixth canto. We're rolling here. Okay, now we're here. Okay, the acronym. We're on the sixth canto now in our Bhakti by Baba program. We're finishing off our Bhakti by Baba program this year for San Francisco. Oh boy, this one is Ad Vritaditi. Take a little while, but once you memorize them, you got the whole thing. They're sutras. Ad Vrita Diti. Ajamil, daughters of Daksha, Vrita Sura, and Diti seeks revenge. That's the whole thing. So we heard about Ajamil because the fifth canto talks about everybody going to hell. So he continues and asks, how is it possible to avoid this? And he tells them by doing bhakti yoga. And so then, after that, he gets back to the creation of the universe, all the species, and Daksha. Daksha took birth as the son of the Prachetas. So we're still sticking to the Prachetas now in their line. That's how it's being created. They went underwater, they're chanting their mantra underwater all through the fifth canto, and they came back out. They married the daughter of Pramlochan. This is interesting. This is an example of what? Polygamy? Polyandria. Polyandria, one girl with 5 husbands. So Draupadi showed up there after being captured by Arjuna, good-looking guy. She's pretty happy. They're taking her home to their mama, and she found out who they were. Hey, this is pretty good. I got married to the Pandavas. And they go in, and Bhima says, or somebody says, Mata, we got something very nice today when we were begging. Without looking, Kunti says, well, whatever it is, share it equally. And then Draupadi says, like that. My goodness. Then she says, oh my goodness, I didn't mean that or something, But then Yudhishthira says, but your words are law for us, So Draupadi says something like, I don't care what your mama says. I'm not going to marry 5 guys like that. Go find somebody else. So then they start talking about it, and she has a little inclination. They're pretty good-looking guys. And then to confirm it, Yudhishthira cites this example of the Prachetas, and it has existed before amongst great personalities, and that's one thing very important to convince her. Okay, here's a question now. We're not in favor of it. We're kind of in favor of it. We tolerate or think it's practical polygamy, but polyandria we don't promote. I got challenged by one girl during one class one time. Well, why not? It's a pretty fair question. It's kind of, I don't know exactly. Keep on reading. Same things are being mentioned again and again, but you can't go the whole thing one time. You got to look at it from different angles. So we've heard this philosophy before. You got to serve the devotees. By serving devotees, then you'll be able to advance in spiritual life. And when you're serving the pure devotees, you got some spiritual knowledge, not enough, but you got some good knowledge. You're Hare Krishna. Stay amongst the association of other devotees like yourselves. Serve the Uttamadhikaris and the friendship of the Madhyamadhikaris, giving mercy to the Kanistadhikaris. That's the whole thing. Okay. So, but what's the problem with polyandria? Ask the girls here. You don't know? You think it's a good idea?
That all men should marry, but that all women should marry?
That's kind of a good suggestion,
Along those
because we
lines.
talk about population dynamics, and usually there's more girls than boys. So therefore, polygamy, is a practical thing to keep everybody in a proper situation. When the atmosphere is right, when there's good consciousness from the top before birth, when people are born properly as human beings, and the propaganda, the education is right, you'll see historically, in Europe too, that quite a few people didn't get married, men, and they would just live on the edge of the village in a nice monastery. They would make honey and have a nice dispensary. Then all the families could come there, and they had a very a nice relationship, like brothers and sisters and mothers. When it was very happy, it was very happy, like that. They didn't get married. So then more girls than boys, and then a lot of the boys not even getting married, and the rest becoming homosexuals. That's happening in the modern world. It's just like, okay, so then polygamy. It's a very big topic. It wakes people up, but also it creates a lot of problems. Yeah, please, yeah.
One is with Draupadi, she had 5 husbands, but she had 5 sons, one by each husband. In this situation, she was married to 10 Prachetas, and they all had one son from her. Maybe you could enlighten me on that. And the other thing is...
By the way, I can very quickly, I also wonder about that, if there was some kind of biological cloning, or, I don't know.
And the other thing is that in the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagvatam, it explains that in Kali Yuga, the women will outnumber the men.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the same argument that you're giving for polygamy is going to apply to polyandry in the Kali Yuga as it progresses?
Well, they already do, I think. It's probably saying it's a general principle, but as time goes on, it'll become more prominent. That's not the reason Prabhupada gives. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very practical point. I've even heard Muslims say, what are we going to do? Is there more girls, and you're going to put them all in boxes and ship them to America or something? Say, no, it's a very natural arrangement. That's a big topic, and I think that without this, we're not going to solve the world's problems. We have to have nice brahmacharya ashram, polygamy, something else. But how it works and how it's a better system and how everybody is happy with this, okay, that's a big topic, and be some time in the future before we get to that. Yeah.
Mayapur. And one devotee was giving a lecture on polygamy. Well, he wasn't giving a lecture on polygamy, but it came up how Prabhupada's instructions on various things take different nuances at different times, and he used polygamy to show that. Prabhupada's instructions on polygamy. And he pointed to one gentleman in the class, one devotee, and he said, how many wives did your father have when you were born? And he said 6. So he was from Nigeria. And then the discussion started on one woman in the class. She said that in Sweden, polygamy is legal. However, you can't get married to more than one wife in Sweden. You have to get married somewhere else, but then you can come there. So it's already proliferating here and there.
Monogamous relationships don't exist anywhere in the world except maybe India, as far as I know. In America, it's sequential marriage and mixing and everything else. It hasn't worked. Even at the time when the Catholic Church was promoting monogamy, it didn't work. It was accepted that the king had several concubines, and all those people who were born from the king in that relationship were under the bar. They got to use the escudo, what do you call that, the crest, but with a bar sinister, a black bar on it, meaning that they were like bastards, so on. But it was accepted, and they had their position, they had everything else, and nobody bothered them as long as they weren't formally married. And anyway, Prabhupada says the problem with polyandria is that natural, material, feminine psychology is to be attached to one man, right? It's just a natural tendency, if you have this female body, the way it works, to be attached to my daddy. This is my daddy, back off. Or be attached to my husband, and then jealousy. Or when you're later on to be attached to your grown-up son and just, really like that, so on. Okay, so he said it's very rare to find a girl who can give equal affection to more than one man. And if she doesn't, what's going to happen? Conflict, Could Draupadi do it? She's a very qualified person. Nope, she couldn't do it. She was favoring. Yeah, when she needed something, she'd tell Bhima, oh, Bhima, nobody really takes care of me but you, and you're the only one who really loves me, and could you kill Kudachak for me? Like that, so on. So very nice, rich, philosophy, culture. But we're going higher and higher. We're getting off the bodily concept of life. We're dealing with subtler and subtler attachments, subtler and subtler things which will keep us in this material world, and we'll become Indra, we'll become rishis, like that. You do Sankirtan your whole life as a brahmachari, you take birth on Mahaloka, you go Maharloka, this stuff, because you still have attachments to compassion and being the compassionate one, like that. Yes, yeah, very subtle. Every single psychological circumstance you can encounter is in Srimad Bhagavatam. Subtler and subtler, like that. Okay. So here the preaching. Preaching is not to, V-karmis in Chicago. The preaching is to someone who's an advanced personality. He's a jnani, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. He has knowledge, but he's not a pure devotee. Or somehow or other he's fallen in a little bit of confusion. So then Narada and Angira come just to wake him up, So the kind of preaching is different, how they're going to preach to him. In the temple, the same thing may happen. Very senior devotee, but he may get some problems and confusion and be causing all kinds of havoc in the society. And somebody has to come to him. They know how to preach to him in that circumstance to wake him up like that, and so on. Yeah. So basically, that's it. Then the fifth canto, sixth canto. We go to what was it going to? We go to Advrita Ditti, the story of Vritasura, and how he was, created. Because it's all because of the children of Manu like that. We're going through this whole thing. Then the eighth canto, there's a question then about the other 14 Manus, other 13 Manus, and they're described. And then the ninth canto is our Manu and all of his descendants, which comes to Krishna and Balaram. The 11th canto goes back to the descendants of our Manu after Krishna Balaram, under the Kali Yuga. And the 12th canto is the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, summary of Srimad Bhagavatam, Haribol. Okay, so 18,000 verses in 20 minutes. And specifically now, okay, they're preaching to Chitraketu, and they make this point, which everybody I think knows pretty well, that it's essential to serve senior Vaishnavas. You'll always see devotees who are more advanced than you. You'll always see devotees who are less advanced than you, and you'll always see people who are basically on the same level. So you serve the senior devotees, you serve the inferior devotees by compassion, and you serve the other devotees by friendship, like that, so on. And so much information about how to do this, how to serve people, like that, and so on. Service to a devotee is not that you give him nice things for his sense gratification, which we confuse sometimes. Guru Dev, I bought you this gold Rolls Royce. Guru Dev. No. An advanced devotee is happy when you help him in his service to his superiors. So therefore we have to understand the internal consciousness of the spiritual master, not just externally. Externally, okay, if we're not so advanced, we do that. And if he's an acharya, he'll act in such a fashion that by serving him externally, we'll be progressing with the movement like that, and so on. But beyond that, we understand his internal consciousness, and then we can even start to go into the humor of his service. Is he in the mood of Hanuman? Is he in the mood of, Satyaki, and the mood of Mother Yashoda, right? And then start to serve in a more intimate fashion like that, and so on. And so it's a whole process, serving more advanced devotee. I can't remember the verse now. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class and service to the pure devotees, great service is done. Because by serving the devotees, you help Prabhupada's Rath Yatra festival. Jayananda used to engage everybody. He was just everybody could fit into the Rath Yatra festival. Doesn't matter what you could do. You could saw wood. You could put grease on the wheels. You could help with the advertising. So everybody got involved. And what happens? You develop a taste for hearing and chanting. After serving Krishna all day, sitting together and discussing Bhagavad Gita becomes extremely pleasurable. It's a miracle why it happens. And then by hearing and chanting, everything else can happen very quickly. So one of the best results of serving advanced devotee is, increased desire for hearing and chanting like that and so on. Yeah. So any questions, comments? Yeah. Huh?
Psychology?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I graduated in psychology.
I wanted to know what is the difference between modern psychology and Vedic psychology, because I think that Suhotra Swami started to study the Vedic psychology, but he didn't finish it because he passed away. So I was just wondered if you know anything about this. What is the difference between modern and Vedic psychology?
How much time do we have?
Well, it's just briefly.
Briefly. Okay. Okay, let's take the word. Psychology. Okay, Jesus Christ is the Logos. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavinda Krishna Balaram Mahavishnu Radharani Narada Muni. Okay, Jehovah, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, Mother Mary, and Saint Francis of Assisi. Okay, it's the same thing, same reality. So the Logos is that which goes between something else. If you want to understand the psyche, you have psychology. You want to understand the earth, you have geology. You want to understand what else we got? Fish, ichthyology. Okay, So psyche, psychology is the study, the science, of the psyche. So what does psyche mean? Psyche is the mask that the players put in front of their face in a Greek drama, right? That's a persona. That's a persona. And behind the persona is the psyche. So that's the origin of the word, like that. So Britannica used to say that before the 17th century, psyche meant the mind. But then in the 17th century, it became, before the 17th century, it meant the soul. But in the 17th century, it became a formative for the mind, right? And now in the modern world, psychology is pretty much the study of the brain. Right? Because evolutionary theory has become so predominant that they think everything evolves from matter, right? Like that. So finally you get neurons in the species, and they start to do stuff, and then from that you evolve, the mind, like that, and personality and all this kind of stuff. That's what we're doing Carl Jung, because Carl Jung probably said of all the Western philosophers, he seemed to have the most sense. He accepted that there's a good chance that the mind is non-material. It exists in itself. He come to that point of actually experiencing it. He had all these very nice techniques and everything else and so on, like that. So people who appreciate Jung, they can understand our philosophy so much better right away. We're having very good results and gradually preaching this community. You got to find your clients and preach to them. Everybody's got their own clients, and you got to learn to understand yourself. You got to put it out there, and you got to reach them. Yari Deki Tari Kai Krishna Upadesh. Everybody got their disciples. They're waiting for you, Gurudev. But you got to become purified. Understand it. Put it in their language. Okay. So Carl Jung is a very nice area, right? We're discovering more and more nice people and stuff like that to communicate with. Nobel laureates even. Okay. So the psyche then, right now, is psychology. Okay, there's another joke here. Because in the university, when you're taking your degree in psychology, you have to do some experiments, like that. So usually what you use for your experiments are white rats. You use white rats. And to get human beings in your things, you have, like other psychology students, sign up. And so they're almost always college sophomores. So it says that psychology is really the study of white rats and college sophomores. Yeah, there are many things like this. There's a whole book called, there's a whole book on racial prejudice in psychology, titled "Even the Rat Was White." Why don't they use black rats? Well, you can't trust in black rats. Those guys aren't trustworthy. They might be cheating. Come on. No, there's many. Psychology is a big topic, but that's the main thing. That Vedic psychology, what is Veda? Bhagavat psychology accepts that the psyche is married to Eros. It's feminine, married to Eros. Okay, it's interesting. The psyche is meant to, is a soul, wake up, free itself from its absorption in matter, free itself from the absorption in the mind even, the intelligence, and then the soul frees itself even from the intelligence and then from vanity as a fundamental root, the ahankara. Then it's supposed to develop different kinds of non-material ecstasies, bhava, which Catholic saints also talk about. You can find the same thing happening. We call it bhava, they call it beatific states of consciousness. And then Rupa Goswami describes all this, the complete science. Everything's a nectar of devotion. This is a summary of the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. He describes how this is manifested, how it's stimulated, and how you can achieve different combinations, things like that, and so on. So very, very complete. That's Vedic psychology. It goes all the way to the Atma's, rapture. We got that last night. Rapture in its relationship with God. And then Western psychology started off like that, but then became just the mind with no soul, and then finally became just the brain and how it does everything and generates the thing. Of course, not everybody, but it's very predominant and it's getting worse. Okay. So any final questions or comments here? Okay. So we should all try and serve more advanced devotees. So Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki, back home, back to Godhead.